Hello and welcome to Filmy Ladies. Beth and Pitu will be talking today about Shammi Kapoor.
Yahoo!
I was waiting for the Yahoo. I didn't know when it would come, but I'm glad it was there. So that is established. I've watched 3 films in preparation for this, in addition to the things I've already watched in my life about Shammi Kapoor. I think we have kind of different opinions about Shammi Kapoor, so that'll be fun to get into because I think this is the
Yeah.
first time where a massive differences are more significant differences happening. Um, I must report to our listeners that I did not do my homework. I did not read the chapter in the Kapoor bio about Shammi. I did flick through it quickly, and I have very few things to share from it. But as ever, I encourage people to read this book. Um, I don't even really have any summarizing thoughts about Shammi Kapoor. Like, I think if you've seen any of his movies from the late 50s to 60s, you have a sense of who he is. That's probably not strictly true, but if you've seen any of the big films, they're big for a reason. Um, and we should talk about him as kind of a character actor as he ages as well, because I think those are some really strong films. And obviously, we know he plays a great surgeon as a
So
more
great. The
avuncular
best.
character. So, in some ways, I feel like he's a little bit simpler to talk about than the two Kapoors we've gotten to too far so far. And
Yeah.
I am confident he is simpler to talk about than Shashi. Um, so I don't know. Let's jump in. Let's like roll down the snow-covered bank and land on our feet and shout Yahoo and dive on in. What did you watch and what did you think about it?
I watched Brahmachari, which I've seen many times, and it is one of my favorite movies. It's
Oh,
so adorable. And I just kind of needed like a pick me up. And what is better than Shammi Kapoor driving a car, an open air convertible full of children and a cute little dog? And they're just driving down the streets of Mumbai and they're like, going,
oh,
la 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 la
that
la.
is cute. It is a long established theory by Amrita and me, and perhaps others, that you should never let a Kapoor drive a vehicle. They are
Yes.
very erratic drivers on screen.
He's definitely quite an erratic driver in one of the action sequences in this
Uh,
movie, but in the song sequences with the children and the dog in the car, he's actually surprisingly good. He's
Safety first.
definitely like not lane weaving or anything like that. He's
Okay,
actually being like very
very good.
sensible and
Very
good.
good.
And I actually like felt because there are a lot of scenes in this movie where he's driving a car and I was like, oh gosh, he's such a good driver. And then at the end, of course, he had to do a really bad drive job and I was like, okay, got it.
There's the Kapoor gene.
The worst driver so far that I've seen though has to be Asha Parekh. I know she's not a Kapoor, but
Oh,
I'm just saying she tops the Kapoors in terms of
okay.
really erratic, insane driving on mountains, no less.
Oh,
So yes, very bad.
mm.
Um, so speaking of Shami, have you seen those memes that have become so popular where they talk about like golden retriever energy?
No, but I
That is
see it.
Shammi Kapoor to
Yeah,
me.
yeah, I imagine.
Like if you had to pick a dog breed for every Kapoor, I feel like Raj Kapoor would be like a German Shepherd or a Doberman, where he's kind of like
Hmm.
watching and waiting, or like a husky or something, like something a little complicated. And then Shashi would be something extremely beautiful and a little bit
Hmm.
exotic, looking like an Afghan hound or something very classy. And then I feel like Shami Kapoor would be a golden retriever just bounding through the meadows and
A
like
lot of
laughing
bounding.
and snuggling and snorkeling and just like getting his muddy paws on you. And you would be happy to get his muddy paws on you. So he is the embodiment of golden retriever energy. And I
When
feel
we
like that is what he played his entire career,
when we
a
finish our
golden
whole series, we'll
retriever.
have to go back and ascribe dogs to all the Kapoors.
We will.
Do you think that his persona is as simple as I am kind of thinking it is? Like he's
Yeah.
pretty consistently, at least from 1957 onwards, when he finally makes a big hit with Tumsa Nahin Dekha. He
Hmm.
basically is playing fairly similar
Rich dude.
guys
Yeah.
most of the time. And a lot of that energy seems to transfer well to his more character roles as he's older, in my experience. Not all the time. Like in my beloved Parvarish, for example, he's just a pretty serious by the books elder cop guy. Like there's not
Yeah.
much golden mature, but he's also not in it a ton. So pretty consistent, I think.
I mean, I think of the many, many, many Shami Kapoor fans that exist, including myself, I don't think anyone is a or at least I'm certainly not a fan of Shammi Kapoor for his acting. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not watching a Shammi Kapoor movie because I want to be blown away by his
Mm.
amazing thespian, whatever stuff. I'm watching his movies because it's 3 hours of just pure giddy, unadulterated fun and gamballing in mountains and throwing snowballs and just being a rich person. I feel like he essentially always played a rich dude. Like he always played
Mm.
like this Casanova. He was always the Zamindar's son or like some
Mm.
rich, like he was always like this rich, like metrosexual person, right? And at least two of his films, the title literally, one of them is Prince with
Right.
Vijayantimala, and one is Rajkumar with
Right.
Sadhna. So like, you
Right.
know where we're going with this. Like the
Yeah.
man has never played like, leave alone like a peasant or something. He's never even played like a bank accountant or a bus conductor. Like I or a butler. Like these are not roles that Shammi Kapoor can do. He plays the guy that the butler would serve him the coffee. Or, you know, or he would play the guy whose convertible would hit the bus and then the bus conductor gets mad at him. But he's never going to be doing what the plebs do, right?
I
So he's
wonder
always
if
this rich dude.
I wonder if in his first couple years of films that was more varied, and that's one of the reasons they didn't work. Because
Right.
in I also watched Mem Sab, which is just 1 year before Tumsa Nahin Dekha, and he is
Mm.
playing a rich, at least upper middle class, I would say, guy
Mhm.
whose dad has lavished money upon him and whose dad thinks he wasted all of said money. And he's trying to get more money and
Of
he's also
course.
the villain. Um,
Right.
but yeah, I certainly haven't seen him do anything other than that I can remember. In Prince, he does go undercover as a regular type person, but he's still a prince.
Yeah. Yeah, in some ways I feel like he's almost like the male version of Saira Banu, who was like a really good co-star that he had, and of course it was
Hmm.
with her that he gave his first big mega hit, which was Jung Lee. Saira Banu also always played a rich girl. I mean, I think
Hmm.
there were like one or two movies where she plays like a girl from a village, and I'm like, okay, I'm really working hard at the suspension of disbelief, but it's just not working, Saira Banu.
Right,
Like
right.
your London by way of Mumbai accent is just not convincing me you're from a village, but I'm trying here. So he kind of like was like the male Saira Banu in that they were always like rich and pretty. But here's the thing, right? Like even though he always played these like rich, polished guys, he was never a prick. He's always this like happy person, and
Mm,
he's usually like delighted with himself and he's delighted with his life, and he's not like being mean or rude to people, and he's just like kind of living in his own world, I'd say. And have you heard that
mm,
phrase like noblesse oblige? Like there's all this
yeah,
noblesse oblige with him, right?
yeah.
And I don't know. I think that's what makes his movies so much fun to me. And while he's not the most like greatest actor or something, his dances just give me life. I love that his dances are basically him doing what he wants to do.
I mean, I think his dancing gave him life too, right? Is what
It
I mean, how
did.
it seems on the screen is that this is
It's
someone having a good
amazing.
time.
He's just having a good time, and you know that saying, like, "Dance like no one's watching"? Oh, he was dancing like
Right,
no one was watching. Like, he was
right.
just having a grand old
Yeah.
time, and, my husband actually sat with me when I was watching, Brahmachari, and there's that song, "Aajkal Tere Mere Pyar Ke Charche," with, of course, Mumtaz looking like
Mm.
$1 million in her Fanta-colored sari designed by Bhanu Thaya, and she is such an amazing dancer. Like, Mumtaz,
Mm.
her close-ups, her shots, her body, her everything, like, she's just perfection. And Mumtaz is, of course, known for her dancing. And then Shami comes and does something, and my husband was just laughing. And he's like, "What is he doing? I don't think these are the steps that he was prescribed." He's flailing around. But he's having a good time, and he has a big smile on
Right.
his face, and people are having fun. And I feel like, people always say like, "Oh, Dilip Kumar is like the greatest actor ever," and I'm like, yes, but his movies make me sad, and I want to like curl up with a bottle of vodka, like Dilip Kumar, and then his female version, which would be Meena Kumari. Bro, I don't want to spend 3 hours being sad and watching people be sad. I'd rather watch Shammi.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are exceptions just because, in a career like his, there's going to be a few things that are deviating,
Yeah.
but this mold is pretty consistent. it seems to be what people liked about him.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I think he was also like really good in emotional scenes, though. I mean,
Mm.
they're not too long, and they usually get truncated pretty fast. But he's so sweet in Brahmachari because so a lot of Mr. India is actually copied from Brahmachari, like not the science fiction invisible
Mm-hmm.
stuff, but like I'm an orphan and I have an orphanage and I take care of these little children. Like Brahmachari, the movie literally begins like the beginning credits are literally Shammi Kapoor finding like a little baby and bringing it back to his
No.
orphanage and stuff like that. And they're all in this like little convertible and everything. Like it's all of that was lifted in Mr. India, right? And Shekhar Kapoor admitted that the
Mm.
inspiration was Brahmachari. And there's a scene in Brahmachari where so among the odd jobs he has to make a living, he works as a singer at the Plaza Hotel, which is where Aajkal Tere Mere Charcha happens because it's Pran's birthday party, of course. And he also takes photos at the beach and he sells them to a magazine. So there's a scene where he's in the magazine office and he's saying to the editor, I have some more photos of my kids so you can publish them in the magazine, give me money. And the magazine editor is like, no, I don't want any more pictures of kids. Like, no one wants to buy those pictures. You need to find me something sensational and awesome. And he's
Right.
like, but I don't have any money. You have to buy. Don't you know my house is girvi, like it's mortgaged and I need 10,000 rupees. And it's a sad scene, right? Like he's legit being sad. And there's a
Uh,
close up shot of Shammi Kapoor and his face is all like sad. And I'm like, oh, give him the money, please. And he's just like, mere bacche kahan jayenge? मैं उनको लेकर कहाँ जाऊंगा हम सब फुटपाथ पे आ जाएंगे and I'm like oh poor Shammi and poor बच्चे and then the guy says okay fine just take some good pictures today and I will give you 500 rupees at least and he's like hooray and he like falls back in the chair. It took like 2 seconds. I had whiplash, Beth. Because I was all like, oh, poor bache, poor Shami, ye log kahan jayenge? Don't be so heartless, give him the money. And then the guy says yes, and he just goes, hooray! It was insane. It's just these like, almost like a manic energy. And at one point,
right.
my husband looked at me and he was like, do you think they had speed back in the day? And was he on it?
I would not be surprised. I wish I had read the chapter so I could
Right.
report on that a little bit. That's pretty funny.
But he's very sweet in his emotional scenes. Like he legit brought a tear to my eye in the lullaby song that is Main Jagu Tum So Jao. He's so sweet in that. He's so tender with the kids. And like when the children are crying, he just like scoops them up in his big giant arms and he just like snuggles them. And he's just this very like
Mm.
warm, sweet presence. And they keep calling him uncle, uncle. And he's just so darling with them. So I really like Shami Kapoor in his emotional scenes. And yes, he's famous for his like dances and his really glamorous numbers like jungly and evening in Paris and
Mm.
Prince and Professor and all of that, but he's actually really lovely in his sad songs as well.
Mm.
Like I love that song of his with Asha Parekh. I forget the name of the movie, but it's that song, tum mujhe yun bhula na paoge, like you won't be able to forget me, or
Mm.
I'm unforgettable. Like he's so lovely in that. So I do think that when he was like toning it down a little and he wasn't being his usual goofy cartoon character animated self, like in the emotional sensitive moments he was really really sweet and darling. And it's interesting in that he's like he comes across as so much more simplistic than say Raj Kapoor, right? Like even when Raj Kapoor has his tender moments in his films, I'm always like watching him with like one eye. I'm like, is that, are you trying to snow the heroine? I don't get that sense with Shami at all. He just comes across as a much more emotionally transparent person. And I feel like we need that. Like everyone's life is complicated, and it's nice to have one person whose films you just know are going to give you joy, you know? Which
Yeah,
movies did you
that's
see of
true.
his?
So I watched Mem Sab from 1956, in which he is the villain and Meena Kumari is the heroine,
Oh boy.
and Kishore Kumar is the other hero.
Oh,
Hero. It is a uh I liked it. It was not amazing, but so Shami is of course the Playboy son of a rich guy. He's in a relationship with Kumkum, but
Mm.
he wants to marry Meena Kumari for her money.
Okay.
But she has already been promised to Kishore Kumar, who's going through his like, I'm sorry, I don't know the right words, his like holy ritual. So he's been like a sage out in the woods. And
Oh,
his guru is like, now you got to go to the city and learn about city life. And he's like, women are scary. And he like covers up a
yeah.
painting that has a woman in like not fully clothed. And uh there's kind of some stuff about men are men or women kind of thing, but then they put that by the wayside more or less. But then there's all these shenanigans about Shammi is going to corrupt Kishore to be more like him so that he won't be worthy of
Oh,
marrying me and blah, 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 and money. But the best part about this movie is, well, first of all, Kishore Kumar has a song, which he sings picturized on himself, which is always a treat to get those
yes.
like coming together. There's also scenes where he is supposed to not be musical or able to dance, and they're trying to teach him. And watching him pretend he can't do these things is obviously a treat because I can't imagine there's really a more musical person out there.
Right.
Uh, but this movie opens in the best possible way, and I can't believe I had never heard about this before. So, Meena Kumari, rich girl. You see her in kind of a parlor, very modern, with some other young women, some of whom are wearing pants and like have short hair. This is 1956, and they're kind of pacing around, and you see through a door the silhouette of a doctor with a scalpel, and you're like, oh no, what's happening? And then you find
Ooh.
out that her doggy has had puppies. And then we get to see all the puppies being held by all her and her girlfriends. And then they sing a song to the puppies. And it's the puppies' birthday party. So there's a cake and the puppies have little party hats on. Amina Kumari has a little
Beth,
puppy hat.
I
I know.
need to watch this
I
movie.
know. I almost texted it to you last night, but it is the cutest little beginning that you've ever
Oh,
seen.
the
You can
puppies
watch the
have
rest of
party
the movie
hats.
or not, but just watch the first 10 minutes for the puppy song. I can't believe I've never heard of this before. It's the cutest thing I've ever seen. And the little dogs are very well behaved and they're just like dancing around holding the little puppies. I'm like, why am I not dancing around holding a puppy
I
and having a piece of
know.
cake? Like my birthday's coming in May, so like I got my new plans now.
Puppies and cake. And your
Puppy
neighbor
cake
has a new
party.
Rottweiler puppy, so I
Right.
think I think this needs to happen, Beth.
Right. And so I will be sure to put a link to this song in the show notes because it is charming. And I also watched so when I was, kind of learn like what are some of the quintessential Shami films that I haven't seen already. I did watch Tumsa Nahin Dekha, which, is kind of what
Mhm.
established him. He'd not had any hits yet
Yes.
until that date. And this is what made him the sort of
He had had
light rom,
flops
right.
for 4 years.
Yeah. So this is what made him the light kind of rom-com musical star. It's great. The music is A plus 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 plus. It's so fun. I don't know much about Amita, but she was also really fun. Um, and I thought it was great. It was a good time.
Yeah.
I've already mostly forgotten the plot, but it was
Right.
it was very enjoyable. And then, oh, and it also has what I am led to believe is the first appearance of Shetty,
Oh,
the
really?
Hollywood action choreographer, father of Rohit Shetty, on at least his first Hindi film. And he's very recognizable, even though it's black and white and like he's wearing some kind of ridiculous stuff. But you're like, oh, that's him. He looks exactly
Right.
the same as he does 20 years later in the films I've mostly seen him in. And then I watched Bundal Baaz because I wanted to see one of his directed films. And of course, he is also in it. I loved this movie. I did not expect to. I freaking loved it. Have you seen it?
Wow, I have not. I
So
haven't even
it's
heard of it.
so it's Rajesh Khanna who plays a
Oh boy.
poor but earnest, kind of fun-loving dreamer guy. He's
Hmm.
kind of romancing Sulakshana Pandit, who is someone I
Mm.
like, but who I always feel like you couldn't get Neetu Singh, so you put her in instead. They're
Yeah.
very similar to me, but I do like her. Um,
I also
and
confuse Salakshana Pandit and Yogita Bali all the time.
sure, yeah, I
Like for
can get
some
that.
reason, I'm like, who's who?
Yeah. And then he has to go home and finds out his family supporting him in college have like mortgaged their land. And he has a younger sister who's being threatened by the debt collector.
Mm.
That is, of course, Farida Jalal, because of course it is. I know.
So cute.
And he's friends with Azrani in the city. And so he goes back to the city to try to get a job, but he can't really get a good job. So he ends up being a bottle collector. And he then sells on the scrap material. And Johnny
Mhm.
Walker is his mentor in this business. And one day he breaks a bottle and a genie comes out. And the genie is Shami.
Of course, the
And
genius
so then
Shammi.
they have adventures and all is
Oh, that's
made.
fun.
And Ranjit is the villain, but it's like a full-on role. He's the major villain. He's not just a hench dude. And for me and my 70s minded friends, like, this could not be better. This casting is amazing. It's 1976. Everyone is in this. And the idea that Shami gave, like, Ranjit a full role, like, I really appreciate that. Now, he wasn't the producer, so maybe it's not only up to him, but I thought this movie was great. The songs are cute. I don't know if I've ever enjoyed Rajesh Khanna more than I did in this film. I know.
Wow.
I mean, I've never disliked him really, but I don't get it. But because he's
Right.
not primarily a romantic hero in this, I think, and he has he has a very different style of comedy than Shami. So Shami's being
Yes.
like, he comes out of the bottle and he's really tall, and then he gets really small, and then there's like kind of the
Right.
wackadoodle stuff.
Yeah.
And he's flying, flying and things like that. It's
Right.
very charming. He magics up a Taj Mahal for them in Bombay, and the set they made for this, you guys, it's amazing. I don't know if this just
Really?
exists somewhere in Filmistan or whatever, and they reuse it, but it's for a fake Taj Mahal, it's pretty good. Um, and there's a song with Rajesh Khanna and Sulakshana inside, kind of romancing and imagining themselves as Mumtaz and things like that. It's so cute. And Rajesh Khanna has just such a light touch with the comedy. I just said that, I know,
Mm.
but like, I really appreciated their two different styles fitting together really well.
Yeah.
It's just a delight. I saw it either on YouTube or Einthusen, so it's around with subtitles, and it is really charming. I would almost recommend it for kids, but there is a caveat that twice women are threatened with sexual assault or are
Mm.
assaulted because, like, of course.
Right.
But other than that, I thought it was really, really cute. And I think
Okay.
even if you're, watching with a youngster who, maybe they don't know all of this Hindi vocabulary or whatever, I don't think it'll matter. It's pretty, you can see what's going on pretty well. It's really cute. Highly recommend. And as I was watching it, I can appreciate the sort of Shami comic mind or interest going towards something like this, because though it is a fantasy film, but it's not a full-on fantasy film.
It's
As
not
his
a
bre-
Juba.
it's not a Juba, but all of a sudden a Juba makes so much more sense because I can see Shashi like, oh, well, my brother directed a film like that. I'm gonna direct a film like that.
Right.
And he took it times about 5 and made it more, 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 more. But they have a lot of similarities in some ways. And it was very interesting to think about why they would have chosen to do films like this. Because Raj Kapoor doesn't direct a film anything like this, right? None of his
No.
directorial films
Mm-mm.
or anything kind of like have a fantasy element to them, other than maybe some song sequences.
I
But
feel like
anyway,
I feel like all of Raj Kapoor's films were like
yeah,
rooted in reality. Whether
social
you like the
realism of
movie
some
or
kind.
not, it was
Yeah.
always, yeah,
Or like
realistic.
fantastic that somebody wouldn't love Zinat Aman because of her face or whatever, but like, okay. Um,
Yeah.
anyway, highly recommend. And I was very glad to see this as a director because I thought it was pretty well done, honestly. It's really
Hmm.
cute. If you don't like 70s masala, this may not be the thing for you because it's still got that, but with this fantasy kind of put together. I think it's a very successful combination. I can't wait to go reading about what other people have had to say about it. It's pretty lightweight, but it's cute. It's really cute, and we need more charming little films.
Yeah. It's interesting to hear you talk about Rajesh Khanna and him together because those are two names I would never
I know, right? When you see them, you're
imagine
like,
together.
hmm,
Yeah, like you feel like it could be
hmm.
really great or it could be
Especially if
terrible.
Shami is not just an uncle, right? As he is in like
Right.
Parvarish, for example. Like, he's not really in it that much.
Right.
He's actually billed first. And
Right.
this is 1976, so it's the decline of Rajesh Khanna has started to happen. Now, when did they film it? I don't know the answer to
Right.
that. But like, I just, it was, yeah, I felt like they really complemented each other really well. If
Hmm.
anyone has seen it, I would be interested to know what they thought about that. Um, it's pretty cute. It's pretty
Okay.
cute.
I'm
Now,
surprised that this movie is not like famous because it's like, it's the big giant movies of
yeah,
his that everyone talks about
I
all the
think
time.
since it's past
Past his peak.
Zanjir and Duar, right?
Mm.
Like um, also I suspect he had a million other movies out in 1976, and like maybe this one just got kind of lost in the shuffle, even if people, and because he does have a romantic number with Selekshana. He is
Mm.
a romantic lead, but that's not mostly what he's doing, and so maybe people didn't want to see that. Um, and I have to say, I
I,
salute him for doing this, because I can see how this may have been kind of a hard sell, like first time director, someone who's not really known for their artistic choices in a way, right?
Mhm.
Like if I'm being a little snobby about that, but I suspect a lot of people kind of felt that way about him. I also, in my skimming of the chapter, I did find out that Shammi was not easy to work with. And I can
Really?
actually read some of that out loud, because
Hmm.
it runs very counter to the image I have of him in my head.
Right, yeah.
Um, so for example, sorry, my cat is making weird noises. So if I'm looking
Hmm.
off screen, it's because I'm like, what did the cat get into now? So the author is talking about performing and things like that in song sequences, and it says, um, so they're talking about Shammi having to wait. It says, frustrated at his long wait in the antechamber of the Hall of Fame. Quite a metaphor. Shammi Kapoor was determined to
Mm.
remain in the spotlight for as long as possible. Lake Tandon, who made 2 films with him, Professor and Prince, maintains that the actor did this at the expense of others. Shammi wanted to be taken seriously, but the tragedy was that he wanted to take away the success of others in order to do so. Nobody wanted to work with him. Kalpana was a good dancer. Bella Bose was a better dancer than him, but he would stop in the middle of a scene and ask her who she was sleeping with.
Oh.
Yeah, he did this only to upset her and spoil her performance. Sadhana refused to act with him after a while. Asha Parekh, however, was able to stand up to him. And regardless, his career graph went up steadily because we let men get away with anything. Um, so that was interesting. And maybe there's more contextual
Yeah.
information in this chapter that I've not gotten to yet, but I thought um, that's very off-putting and very bad behavior.
That's interesting because I was reading an article where Saira Banu, who was one of his like main co-stars, talked about how easy he was to work with and how nice he was to her on
Oh,
the sets of Jungli because she was super young in Jungli. I think she must have been like 16 or 17, and she was terrified. And it was her first day of shoot, and she had no idea what she was doing, and she was like panicking. And her mom was on the sets,
mm,
and I read because I follow Saira Banu on Instagram. Her Instagram is amazing, by the way, because
yeah.
she like writes these like 3 paragraph captions where she tells you all the inside stuff. And she talks in that about how kind he was to her and just sort of like held her hand and made her very comfortable. And she credits him with making her first film easy because otherwise she was so terrified that she didn't want to act anymore. So I don't know.
So, I mean, there's probably still pressure to say nice things about him, right? He's dead,
Yeah.
but and the fact that it's Lake Tandon saying these things, and not the women
Yeah.
themselves, like that, or at least in these quotes
Right.
this quote that I'm looking at, like that's,
Right.
um, there's also something in here that talks about how, he's a consummate comedian. He can flip between playing like comedy and emotion really well with a lot of ease.
Mm.
Um, yeah, he can do slapstick and then transition back out of it pretty successfully, quickly. And then the book talks about how um, Rajesh Khanna became kind of his nemesis because he was a younger, more conventionally attractive romantic lead.
Mm.
As those Kapoor genes hit Shammi Kapoor really
Yeah.
fast and hard, right? So by the time he's 40, he looks much older than what we would consider 40 to look like, and older
Yeah.
than Rishi did when he was 40, for example.
Yeah.
Um, and so the book is saying, he made a splash with Aradhana with Shammi Kapoor's former heroine, Sharmila Tagore, of course. He proved to be his nemesis the way Amitabh Bachchan was to be later for
Mumtaz
Khanna.
as well, like Rajesh Khanna and Mumtaz was a
Yeah,
gigantic hit pair, and Mumtaz was
yeah,
also a Shammi Kapoor heroine.
yeah. So I don't
Interesting.
know. That's interesting, and I would like to read this chapter. It is really really interesting. It says that the critics were not very kind to to Bundal Baaz and Manoranjan from 1974, which I have not seen. So
I think I've seen that.
yeah,
Is that the one that has Rati Agnihotri in it
it had
and Ashok Kumar?
Sanjeev Kumar
Maybe I've seen it. I'm not sure.
and Zeenat Aman. It has
Hmm.
Artie Berman music.
Okay.
Um, the book does not talk much about Bundal Baaz, which I think is too bad because it's really cute. But
Yeah.
and I've
I
heard
did. Yeah, go
I've
ahead.
heard just other bits and pieces. So if you don't know the blog written by our friend Greta, Memsub Story, she is
Yeah.
the biggest
She
Shammi
was a big
Kapoor
Shammi
fan
fan.
that I know. She did get to meet him before he passed away, which is lovely. And she's reviewed a lot of his films. She's told me bits and pieces of gossip about him that also makes the womanizing as again, a compulsion, a choice, a whatever, a part of his life, and
Right.
that he was pretty, um, it seems like he liked to tease other men about it as well, like
Right.
egg people on about who they were having affairs with and stuff like that. So not,
Mm,
so, and frankly, I don't know all the context, whatever, it's
right.
kind of bully behavior, frankly, like,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I don't know. We'll never really know some of it for sure, but obviously his persona as he got older was, very reliable as the paterfamilias when needed, of a certain kind of flavor, brought in as a surgeon or another kind of authority
Yeah.
figure, and
Or a dad.
his delightful website where he chronicles his family
Yes.
with a lot of interesting information that's very worth looking at if you haven't, even if you just pick one person and kind of read about it. I need to actually dig back through that to see some of the, as I fill out my Kapoor family tree diagram, there's a lot of things where everybody says so and so is related, but they don't ever say how. And I would imagine that he probably
Right.
has some information that'll actually clear that up.
Right.
Like the relationship between Prithviraj Kapoor and then whatever branches of the Boni
Right.
Anil Kapoor family is one of the ones I'm
Right.
very interested in.
For
So
example, I know that Shammi Kapoor and Salma Agha are related, but I'm so confused about how exactly. But like
I'd
I
have
know
to
that
I'd
they
have to
are.
pull it
So
up.
it's just one of
Right.
those, like, they're related to everybody. But
Right.
here's an interesting snippet I read,
Yeah.
because it's almost like if you're a Shammi Kapoor fan or even just a viewer of his movies, right? There's the pre-weight gain Shammi Kapoor and there's the post-weight gain Shammi
Yeah.
Kapoor. Pre-weight gain Shammi Kapoor is the hero that we know. And
Hmm.
the post-weight gain Shammi Kapoor is the dad and the grandpa and the doctor and the cop and like all the supporting roles he did. But it was pretty fast, I think, that he kind of went off that cliff.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, like he was like a much older looking 40. So for instance, look at this. And I thought this was an interesting bit. He turned into a successful supporting actor in the 1970s, playing Saira Banu's father in
Mm.
Zamir, 1975, when he had been her leading man a decade earlier in Jungli, 1961, and Bluffmaster, 1963. And it's like within 10 years, he went to like playing her dad. And the only other time I've seen something like this happening is it's always the woman who's the heroine,
Yeah.
and then she becomes mom. For example, Wahida Rahman playing
Yeah.
Amitabh's heroine, but then playing his
Yeah.
mother as she ages out, right? And I was like, okay, for once the tables were turned,
And
and
he
the
is
actor was actually
13 years older than her, which is not the
right.
oldest, biggest gap, but it's enough to,
Push him into that,
especially if your
yeah.
physicality is not being kind to you in terms of movie starness, like,
Hmm.
yeah, that's
I also
gonna do
read
it.
that one of the reasons he had sort of this meteoric rise, and like after those first 4 years where he was like a flop actor, and then
Mm.
boom, he hit the jackpot, and after that he was just a superstar for a really long time, is that he actually didn't have a lot of competition, because no one else was a good dancer, like among the men, I'm saying.
Mm.
And the people who were acting at the same time as him, like the big stars, were Devanand and Dilip Kumar. Dilip
Yeah.
Kumar's oeuvre was completely different. Like there is no planet on which Dilip Kumar and Shammi are like, they're just chalk and cheese. And then Devanand played these metrosexuals and played these like, but he was a lot more versatile than
Yeah.
Shammi Kapoor
Yeah.
was. He
Definitely.
could play a lot of different things. Like Devanand could play the rich Casanova, but he could also play a pocket mar or like a guide
Right.
or like a
Right.
whatever. Like he was
Right.
much more every man boy next doorish and
Hmm.
things like that, and had much more range than Shami did. But I think Shami's combination of his looks, his physicality, his dancing, his absolute lack of abandon, and I
Yeah.
mean his abandon and his absolute lack of
Yeah.
inhibitions,
Yeah.
his dancing,
Yeah.
the sizzling chemistry he had with his heroines, specifically you know um Saira Banu and Mumtaz, who kind of have that same vibe going on that he does, where they're all like these very well dressed rich people. um I think there was just no one else who had that kind of combination. So he came in at a time and he filled that niche and
Yeah.
that vacuum, and that was
Yep.
it. No one else
Yep.
could touch him.
Yeah. He
Because
doesn't really
even
have any
Rajesh Khanna,
peers.
He doesn't. And then Raj Kapoor was doing completely different things.
Very different.
And then Rajesh Khanna, as you said, became his nemesis. But again, Rajesh Khanna didn't do the things that Shammi
No,
did. And Rajesh Khanna
no,
certainly couldn't dance either.
no.
So I think he was just like right place, right time, found his niche, and like used the heck out of it.
And maybe
Right?
lucked into the right. But no, I don't know how Tumsa Nahin Dekha was cast, right? I don't know how that process
Right.
actually happens, but like that, and maybe another film like that would have come along also. But to have that
Right.
amazing music, really like, and we have to
I
credit,
mean,
Rafi is obviously a huge part of the Shammi Kapoor stardom.
amazing. He
And we
was
haven't
his
really talked
voice.
about Rafi very much on this podcast. Like I
I
would say he's
love
my favorite of the
Rafi.
men singers. I would say, I think he's
Oh, I thought you would say
phenomenal.
Kishore Kumar.
I like them both very much. I think
Okay.
just the ones that, yeah, like slight
He has
edge
a
to Rafi, I think.
beautiful voice.
Just
I
so,
love Rafi
so
so
fun.
much.
So
My
fun.
dad was actually one of the founding members of the Muhammad Rafi Fan Club Society in Mumbai when he was
Love
in college,
it.
and
Oh
he
my
did accounts for
gosh.
them. Yeah,
That's
he
adorable.
was a founding member of the Muhammad Rafi Fan Club, and he was also a founding member of the KL Sehgal Fan Club. But the KL Sehgal Fan Club folded very quickly.
So did your,
They didn't have as many takers as the Rafi Fan Club.
I can't remember, was your dad still around when Delhi Belly came out and they have
No, my dad passed
oh,
away like in 95, a
okay. So
long,
he
long
never
time
got to
ago.
hear the
But
Sehgal blues in that song, in that film, which are so
no,
good.
but he loved Shammi. In fact, Shammi Kapoor was like my dad's favorite like
Oh,
hero, although
yeah.
he also liked Raj Kapoor's movies a lot. And he actually got to meet Shammi Kapoor, but it was on an Air India flight.
Ah.
So it was just my dad. I think he was flying on like business to Europe, and then from London he was going to go to Mumbai to meet his family. My mom and I were in Nigeria. We weren't going to India,
Mm,
and he was in Air India, and he was in first class, and he didn't know who was sitting in front of him because this person boarded last. Whoever this
sure.
person was, they boarded last, and the flight attendants kept bringing things to this person and kept offering them like drinks and things. And my dad was like, I'm in first class also. Why am I not getting this preferential treatment? Who the heck is that? Right. So my dad went into like rich person
Ah.
spoiled mode. And then he happened to like catch a glimpse, and he was like, oh my God, Shammi Kapoor is sitting in front of me. And he was so shook. It took him like 5 minutes to get up. And he was like, I need his autograph. I need his autograph. What do I do? So my dad got his autograph on his boarding pass. We have lost that boarding pass. I
Oh,
don't have it
shoot.
anywhere. But
That's
yeah, so he was
adorable.
very thrilled about it. But yes, I love Ruffy so much. And I was actually thinking about Ruffy this morning because I have a Ruffy playlist on my iPad. Of course, I
Mm,
do. And I have an emo Ruffy songs playlist, which is also wonderful. Like when one needs a good cry,
which is all
one
the time for
taps into,
you.
which is all the time for me. I have an emo Kishore Kumar playlist and also a Rafi one. And the Kishore
Oh,
Kumar playlist is named for a CD that my friend picked up at Rhythm House in Mumbai, which is called Kishore Kumar Ke Dard Bhare Geet. So my playlist is also called that. Anyway, I was
nice.
thinking about Rafi this morning, and at first I was like, "Oh my God, Shami Kapoor was so lucky to have Rafi as his voice, just as Raj Kapoor had Mukesh as his voice, because Rafi, oh, I mean, you cannot
Yeah.
talk about Shami Kapoor without talking about Chahe Koi Mujhe Jangli Kahe." Um, ए गुल बदन or बदन पे सितारे लपेटे हुए or any of the songs from अकेले अकेले कहाँ जा रहे हो from Evening in Paris or any of the songs from these films. Like you cannot talk about Shami Kapoor without also talking about Muhammad Rafi in the same breath. And I was like, oh my gosh, Shami Kapoor was so lucky to have Rafi because who else? Because Kishore Kumar's voice would not have been right for Shami, nor would Mukesh's, but Rafi was
Oh, not
just
Mukesh at all. Yeah.
perfect. No, not Mukesh at all.
Yeah.
But Mukesh is great for RK. And then, but then by afternoon, I changed my mind and I said, and I thought to myself that I think they were both lucky because when
Sure.
you look at videos of Shami emoting to those Ruffy songs,
Mm,
he is exceptional. He
mm,
brings the giddy, extravagant, exuberant delight in the Evening in Paris songs, but then he brings the sad songs. He brings the sensitivity and the softness and the awe feels. The romantic songs, he knows how to like hold back. He knows how to romance his leading lady. Like
mm.
he really brings life to those songs. And if we think that the lip syncing and the expressions don't matter, we need to only look at Rajendra Kumar
Yeah, they absolutely matter. Absolutely.
to see
Yeah.
how a Rafi song can just fall
Yeah.
flat. Like all of the songs of Sangam, I know I bring up Sangam a lot because I love that movie and I have very complicated feelings about it. But you only have to see the songs of Sangam to be frustrated by how much Rajendra Kumar just ruins every opportunity to do what he can. So
Mm.
expressionless. And then Shami brings the expressions and he makes me happy. But I love the whole, like, I think Shami and Rafi, great combination. Shami with Saravanu Mumtaz, great combination. And then Shami and Shakti Samanta, great combination. So I think there's these really great collaborations I think he did. One question I have, and I don't know if anyone knows the answer to it or if we can theorize, why did Raj and Shami never share space and Shami and Shashi never share space? Like, why were these people so
There's one
siloed?
Shammi Shashi song, at least. It's a
Okay.
Kawali.
Okay.
I will put it in the notes, but I don't believe that. I forget. I think it's a Shami film, and Shashi just pops in, or the other way around. I should know that. I don't. So
He
I
does
don't
a
think it's
cameo.
more of a just a stunt cast kind of
Mm.
fun cameo thing. But yeah, and similarly, I'm seeing that one of my notes in the book is that there's no mention of Shami and Shashi's relationship, even though they both
Mm.
were interviewed for the book. So maybe they didn't want to talk about it or something. I don't know. But yeah, I is it just that the flavors are too different? Because when Shashi is younger, there are a couple black and white films where he's trying to do some of what Shami does. He's not as successful at it for sure.
Mm.
Is he better
Right.
at aping Shami than some other people are at aping Shami? That is possible. I haven't seen enough to say, but yeah, that's not, that is not going to be his wheelhouse, nor is it kind of culturally as much the wheelhouse as his star rises either. So it's not even a relevant
Hmm.
thing to consider. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Um, Maybe they're all really annoying to work with. Maybe
Yeah.
they, for all the times they pose together in pictures, maybe they don't actually like working with each other, or it's like home is enough. We don't we don't need to
Right.
work together. I don't know.
Or
Because
maybe it was like a separation of work and
yeah,
family, sort of.
is Shami in much with Prithviraj? Because Shashi is not, I don't think, in anything with Prithviraj, or not
I don't
much
think so.
anyway,
No.
other than as a wee baby and in one of the films as
Right.
a wee baby. So that, the Raj had that, but the other two didn't, although
Yeah.
he dies by the mid-70s, I think. So
Because in
um
Kal Ajar Kal, which I mentioned in the Prithviraj episode, you get to really see like Prithviraj, Raj, and Randhir's relationship, those
mhm,
three generations.
mhm,
But I just think of Shami as like sort of his being his own self, um,
yeah,
and not really. But I've always wondered about that. It's like you have all these Kapoors, but it's like they don't ever like really collaborate.
not a
But I mean,
ton.
you see that even now. Like you have Karishma and Kareena, who are such big stars in their own right, and Ranbir, of course, their cousin. But is there a single movie that has Kareena and Karishma together? I don't think so. And then Kareena and Ranbir, I don't think have ever worked together. So I don't know. Maybe it's weird to me.
I am dead wrong. There are 11 things on IMDb that credit Shami and Shashi as being in
What?
them. Um, oh yeah, and I've even seen Salakin. That's one of them. Now one of them is Raj's funeral, as I was saying before. Oh, and
Yeah.
okay. Okay, so a couple of these are
Salake is the
well,
one that has
and
Karan Kapoor in it, right?
Ajuba. Ajuba is there,
Oh, yes, of course,
Shashi's not on
Ajuba.
the screen though. Sorry, which one?
Salake, is that the one that has Karan Kapoor in it?
No,
Because
no,
he was in Sultanat, but
it's a 70s Shashi
okay,
kind of masala-y thing with children split up at a fair and all that kind of thing.
of course.
Um, yeah, so they don't work together much, certainly.
Mm.
Um, Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I I think their flavors are just too different. But also
It's just,
I'm imagining they must not have wanted to, because if they had wanted to, I would think they
yeah.
would have the social capital to make that happen,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
especially Shami.
Mhm.
Um, so
Plus the fact that they owned RK Studios.
right.
I mean, Raj Kapoor owned it, but still,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like, at least with like Karishma, Kareena, and Ranbir, it's like none of them are
Right,
directors,
they're
none
not
of them are producers.
producing.
They pretty much just act and stuff.
Right.
So then, but I mean, one thing I always found interesting about Shami, I mean, of course, everyone knows like he was married to Geeta Bali, who was
Yeah.
his co-star in a movie, and then they had, I think they got married in 1956, one
I think
month
that's
after they
right.
started working together, and then they had a son a year
Mhm.
later in 57 or something, and then she died at age 35 when she was
Mm.
shooting for a movie. So that's very tragic and very sad. But one thing that stood out to me was that Shami kind of broke that Prithviraj and Raj Kapoor mold, where first of all, he did marry an actress. And
Mhm.
secondly, she did continue to act after marriage and
Mhm.
after children. And I feel like when everyone talks about how the Kapoors don't let their wives act, or they don't marry actresses, or they'll marry an actress but she can't act anymore, everyone just always forgets about Shami and Geeta Bali. People do
And
bring up
Shashi and
Shashi
his
Kapoor.
wife.
Right,
Right?
but people do bring up
It's a
Shashi and
Raj
Jennifer.
thing. It's a Raj line.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a Raj thing. And because
Mhm.
these two brothers did have
Mhm.
actress wives and they did continue to act. So I do wonder where
Mhm.
that whole thing comes from.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, the Raj branch is the branch that most people are
yes.
more attuned to, whether on purpose or not, right? Um,
Well, that's also the only branch that kept kind of
in a
their
major
legacy
way kept
in
going.
film
Yeah.
going forward, because the
Yeah.
Shashi branch basically got into theater or does something completely different. Like Karan and Kunal Kapoor have nothing to do with films, and then Sanjana Kapoor, of course, runs Prithvi,
Yeah.
and then Shami Kapoor's kids are not in films at
Right.
all. His son Aditya Raj Kapoor does not work in film, I think, and his daughter is married to Manmohan Desai's son.
Mhm.
So she never like entered the film industry, I think, anyway. So I think like kind of like with Shami and Shashi, you kind of see them kind of
Yeah.
walk away from the film
Yeah.
industry, but
I mean,
Raj's
although
line continues
Shashi's three
to
kids did
act.
all launch into films, they just didn't do very well.
Yeah,
Although the
agreed.
older son was um in some, Kunal was in some, he's in some of the artier films, for example, and is
Right.
kind of moderately involved. But yeah, the younger two.
Yeah. But it's so funny. Like, I have such a soft spot for Sanjana Kapoor because I think her first film is one of the movies that I loved watching. So it was one of those films that always came on TV, and I don't know why,
Mm,
but it's a movie called Hero Hira Lal.
yeah.
Have you seen it? I
No,
love
I
that
started it
movie.
once, but yeah, I haven't
It's
seen it yet.
so
Yeah.
quirky and weird and cute. It's a very indie movie. It's
Mm,
adorable. It has Nasiruddin Shah, and that is
that's a
insanely.
weird combo.
That is such a weird couple,
Yeah.
Sanjana Kapoor and Nasiruddin Shah. But it works, and the movie is
Oh.
cute, and it has a song I absolutely love. It is shot in Mumbai by the water, and she's walking and she's sad. And Sanjana Kapoor is absolutely gorgeous in the song, and the song is "Sapno Ki Duniya Hai." And people who are old like Beth and I, you may have heard of Napster, but I spent 18 hours trying to download Sapno Ki Duniya Hai from Napster back in the day because I couldn't find it anywhere. And I
Oh.
refused to pay like 200 rupees for a Hira Lal CD because all the other songs are crap. But I did finally manage to download that song. But Hira Lal is really cute, and Sanjana Kapoor I thought was adorable. But I
Hmm.
think the kids just did not have it in them
No.
to act. It was like, it's okay, find other professions, it's fine.
Yeah, they did
Um,
fine.
yeah.
I have another Shami question for you.
Okay.
It's kind of a two-pronged but related. So clearly there's something going on with a more overt sexuality with him than
Yes.
there is with some of his contemporaries and his brother and his father. Um, and then also there's always the Elvis comparison, which I think
Yes.
is, now I am no Elvis scholar, uh,
Mhm.
at all, but I think there's some fairness to that. Like I see that more than I do people saying Devanand is like Gregory Peck. Like I've never
Yeah.
understood that. Um,
No.
but
Can you
uh,
imagine Devanand as Atticus Finch? Because I don't want to.
on no planet, on no planet, on no adaptation
He'd
and
start singing in a
transfer.
court of law, though. That would be fun.
Yeah. I think Devanand can do a lot of things, but he's not Atticus Finch, I don't think. Um, so I don't have a whole lot to say about this, but I just think it's kind of interesting to think about. And I do get that he is overt in a
Yes.
way that some other people are not. And some of that is dancing because he is using his body in a way that other people
Hmm.
just weren't. Um, I personally don't find it like seductive or anything, but in terms of being very different than what had come before and that being like a whoa, I can certainly understand
Yeah.
that. Same with Elvis, right? Like it doesn't really work on me, but I get how it was
Yeah.
radical. At least for mainstream and in Elvis' cases, white, audiences. And so whatever the parallel would be for Hindi audiences. But so that I think that we just need to mention that when we think about him.
Yeah.
And he's got the kind of wildness, and for people who sort of like their attraction
Swagger.
tinged with a hint of swagger and maybe even a little bit of danger, I can see
Danger.
how that
Yeah.
would be, how that's gonna kind of work in a way that other people weren't doing. And also he literally becomes a big star 10 years right after partition, right? So like India is at a stage where,
Hmm.
there's like some teen rebellion happening maybe, or
Yeah.
I think that, when we talk about, so that's out of you do that for a while and then you become the angry young man,
Right.
So
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
I'm sure
You
there's a
sow
great
your wild
PhD.
oats and you
Yeah.
party it up.
Yeah. I'm sure
Yeah.
there's a great thesis out there
I
about this.
agree with you, and I think that was definitely part of his charm, because
Mm,
when I rewatched An Evening in Paris for our Sharmila Tagore
mm,
episode that we had done, I did find his and Sharmila's chemistry to be sizzling,
mm,
especially in that song Akele Akele Kahan Ja Rahe Ho, and also Raat Ke Hum Safar, where she's wearing that like midnight blue jamdani sari, and he's like, the way he like holds her pallu, or the way he comes really close to her, or he kind of like kisses her neck. I mean, these are things that Shah Rukh did way later and he gets credit
mm.
for. Back then, people were not really holding their heroine's pallu and getting that close to them and being that touchy feely. um I mean, I can't even imagine Dilip Kumar doing that.
Right.
Devanand also didn't really do that. I mean, I feel like Shami is the only one I know from that age that did that. And that's probably why his romances come across as more believable to me. And that's because of age and generation, right?
Yeah.
Like, if I'm from a much different and much younger generation than that generation, I'm going to find a more sexual and a more overt romance
Yep.
like An Evening in Paris or
Yep.
those other films. I'm going to find that much more believable
Hmm.
than the Dilip Kumar romances where you sit 5 feet away from your heroine. I get that that's what a majority of people did
Hmm.
back then, but it's hard for me to relate to
Hmm.
it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Whereas to me, I buy what Shami
Yeah.
is doing. Even that song that he has, Badan pe sitare lapete hue, O jane jahan kahan ja rahi. He's really sexy in that too.
Mm.
And then I think, to me, that's more relatable. I think he just, I think part of the reason I like him so much, I can't speak for other people, is the fact that he came across as so uninhibited.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
everyone else came across as very like measured and very like, this is how we dance, we do the steps our choreographer tells us, and this is our dialogue delivery, and this is how a hero is supposed to act, and this is how a hero romances. It does come across as cookie cutter, and some people were inhibited to the point of just being like, oh my god, do you even have a pulse?
Right.
Again, I'm going to bring up Rajendra Kumar again. I hope there are
Right.
no Rajendra Kumar fans listening to this podcast, because we're going to get hate mail for this. But it's like, it's so boring. It's like these vanilla heroes, and then you have Shammi and he has just this wild abandon, and it's just more believable and more relatable.
Mm.
Like, I'd go out on a date with him if we were the same age or something, and I met Shami Kapoor, and I'd be like, "You seem like you'd be a good time. You can absolutely take me out for drinks and bowling or something. And we can absolutely go to a nightclub and do a dancing there, and it'll be a good time." I do not want to go out on a date with Dilip Kumar or Raj Kapoor or any of those people. So yeah, I agree with the erotic
Yeah.
sort of overtness, but he's never sleazy. He's never gross and icky to me.
I
Um,
mean, he's gross in Memsa, but he's the
oh, is
villain.
he?
So it's
Okay.
before he's
Oh, but
the
he's a
the
villain also.
hero.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he slaps women in it, and
Oh
yeah, he
gosh.
he gross. There's less
Okay.
slapping in this movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, before, once he becomes the kind of star that he becomes, then yeah.
Right. I like how in control of his image he was. I like that when his
Mm.
films were flopping and he was like, maybe the mustache isn't doing it for me. He made apparently a conscious, concerted effort to like shave off that mustache and just sort of give himself a makeover. And he apparently started wearing his own clothes in the
Huh.
movies.
Huh.
And it was his own wardrobe, much of it which was sourced from abroad. And he started wearing all these expensive clothes that
Mm.
he just owned and, he took off. So it's almost like the secret of success for Shammi was just be yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. He
Like,
has
that
the
stood him in
little
good stead.
he has the little mustache in Mem Sab, and I was like, oh,
Yeah, the pencil mustache.
I don't like it.
So funny. It's like when you're used to seeing someone with a mustache like Anil Kapoor and they shave it off as in Lamhe, you're like, please stop. And then when you're used to seeing someone clean shaven and they grow a mustache, you're like, again, please stop. The only person that has convinced me that facial hair on a man can look good is Shah Rukh Khan and Paheli. But Shah Rukh Khan can convince me of anything. So
Right. For me, it's about, is there some kind of stubble or beard, like a mustache in isolation? I don't like. But if there's some other, like, like how Abhishek Bachchan was like stubbly for a long chunk of the like
yes.
2000s. I'm very much, that's good. But
Oh, he looks so great in Yuba with
mustache
that
in isolation
stubble.
is a no.
No, no, especially the pencil mustaches. Those are terrible. But I have to say, I know we're digressing, but like the worst facial hair I've ever seen is Amir Khan in Dil Chahta Hai, that thing he had here. I don't know what it's
Oh
called.
yeah, the soul patch or whatever. It's
Oh yeah,
awful.
soul patch. Oh, that is the worst Amir Khan has ever looked. I hated
That's
it.
bad.
Yeah.
That's bad. I don't the French beard. I also don't care for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
I was just wanting to share because we had talked in our Prithviraj episode about how tall is this person.
Ah,
And I
yes.
did find that in the book. So I will share it. And this is
Beth
not meant
WhatsApped me
to
because
height
these are the
shame
important things
anybody.
we
Because like
talk
if there's
about.
one thing about your body you can't change, your height's going to be way up on that list.
Yes.
So a quote from Shammi says, I grew to over 6 feet tall. Shashi was 5'11. Raj was a little over 5'7. And our dad was 5'10 and a half.
Wow.
So Shami is the tallest, and then Shashi, which I think people don't, because he was so often with Amitabh, he seems shorter than he really is, but
Yeah.
he's not short
But I
by
was
any
like,
means.
and when you shared that WhatsApp with me, I was like, okay, I completely peg Raj Kapoor at 5'7". That is
Yes,
very
that tracks.
believable.
Yeah.
And then Shami being super tall also tracks because
Hmm.
he often acted with very petite women like Mumtaz and
He looks like
Saira
a
Banu, who
giant.
he was a giant.
And his hair,
Like
like his hair is kind of big and moving all
I
around. You're
think
like, he's a
everything about him
giant.
was big. Like
That's true. He
he
seems
was just
big. Yeah.
a big presence because everything,
Hmm.
right? Like even his voice and his like every
Hmm.
this was no shrinking violet.
No, ma'am.
This was a person that walked into a room and like everybody's head turned to look at him. So he was definitely, I can also believe him being over 6 feet tall or whatever. It's the Shashi thing that confuses me because like in the Mere Paas Maa Hai, how is he 5'11 and Amitabh is 6 feet? He does not look 1 inch shorter. He looks at least 4 or 5, like not 5, but like at least 3 or 4 inches shorter. So was that like a camera angle
I
thing?
think
Was that like
so.
a
I think
okay?
so because you want to have the littler one, like really the risk of
Mm,
what he's doing by saying this is exaggerated by a difference in height or whatever. But when you see him with other
yeah.
actors, then it becomes more clear. But obviously, he's so often with Amitabh that it's hard to shake that, shake that
Yeah. He
impression.
also had a lot of petite heroines. Shashi did. For example, he's done
Mm.
so many movies with Nanda, right? Nanda
She a
was very
little, yeah,
petite.
she seems
She's
tiny.
so little, but
Yeah.
he doesn't tower over her
No.
either.
Well,
But if he's
sometimes
5'11",
her hair is very
oh, yes.
tall
Yes,
sometimes.
yes.
I don't think Shashi projects height particularly. Like
No.
I mean, I know I'm really getting off tangent here. Or on tangent.
We're
He's
the filmy ladies. We're
he's like,
always off tangent.
like how Amitabh, sometimes you're like, that man is all leg, and so he seems maybe
Yes.
taller than he is. I think Shashi is proportioned in a way that
Mm.
doesn't call attention to how tall he is relatively. I've thought
I
about this
think
too
I
much.
agree with you. No, I agree with you because also with Amitabh, it's like his limbs are really long. He's
Yeah.
very lanky and he has like an extremely long neck, which I really noticed when I rewatched Silsila for some reason. I was like, wow, your neck is long, like a giraffe.
And of
But
course,
with
Shashi
Shashi, it's
is often
all more
costumed.
proportional.
He's costumed by his wife who knew what she was doing, right? She has this theater
Mm,
background. She knows how to do costumes. Maybe that's part of it.
yeah.
Like she's making him look um certain ways that to us are translating as
But wouldn't she want him to
average.
look taller?
I don't
Why
know,
would she
maybe
want him to
not.
look average?
Well, he's not usually he doesn't do, his kind of hero is not towering.
Yes, this is
Partly
true.
he's not really, he does some kind of rock'em sock'em masala, but not very much.
Yeah.
He's not a He-Man of any kind, because you get
Mm-hmm.
Dharmendra and Vinod Khanna, and
Mm.
but neither is he the completely sort of more sedate Sanjeev Kumar kind of
Right.
hero either. He's doing this other sorts of things somewhere in the middle. And also, like, there's at least one film where he's with Shotgun. Boy, that's a weird
Mm.
pair. Boy, that's weird.
That
Um,
is also a flavor I don't understand.
no, no. But we'll get to that in our next episode. I can make
Yes,
every episode
because
a Shashi Kapoor episode, but I
I
won't.
know. Because our next Kapoor episode will be on Shashi, in fact.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
then will we get into Raj's?
I think we need to do Raja's kids next,
Yeah,
and then kind of
because
talk
there's no
about what we
Shami
want to
Shashi kids. Like, that's
know.
not.
Unless, I mean, maybe we should do Shashi's kids all in one episode, but
Yeah,
um,
there wouldn't
just
be
for the
much to
sake
talk
of
about.
talking about, I want to talk about Sultanate. I love Sultanate.
Okay, we can do an episode where we talk. Well, I was gonna say we can do an episode where we talk about Shami's kids and Shashi, but like Shami's kids never acted.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, you can talk about Sultanate. I can talk about Hero Hero Lal because I have a soft spot for
yeah.
that movie.
And then
There
I'll
you
watch.
go.
I've never watched what's it called? The one about the planes, about the Air Force
Oh,
Vijay.
Vijeta.
I've never seen that, so now maybe it's the
I've not seen
time
it
I should
either.
see
So,
it.
okay. Also, we'll get to talk about the wonderful, wonderful Karan Kapoor song, Tu Ladki Number One Hai, Tu Ladki Number One Hai. Because,
So
everybody
pretty.
wants to be propositioned by
Yeah.
a very handsome Karan Kapoor pointing his finger
Confusingly
at you, going,
blonde
Tu
person.
Ladki.
Yeah.
He's so aggressive in that song. I'm like, boy, this is a romantic number. You're trying to tell Mandakini she's very pretty. And he's like, Tu ladki number one hai. Like, you better agree with me.
Some people can make that work, unfortunately, but he did not. Did not.
Correct.
Um, oh no, I had one more thing and I forgot it. Oh no. Oh no.
Be like,
Oh,
was it about his personal life? Was it about his
doesn't matter.
movie?
Oh,
His
I
dancing?
know what it is. I mean,
Oh,
if we're ready to sort of conclude, I guess I have
yeah, we
a
are.
question. So, um, I think that after this conversation, I would say that Shammi Kapoor's legacy
Hmm.
is energy
Yes.
as directed into dance or
Dance.
dance-like movement, whatever you want to call it. We talked about whether we call him dancing or not, but like dancing, we'll say movement in music.
Yes.
The quick change of kind of what he's doing. So like emoting to dancing to comedy,
Quicksilver.
and the energy directed into comedy. I think those are
Hmm.
probably the things that constitute his legacy. And I suspect if we were to
Yes.
think about it, we would find elements of that in a lot of people. I would guess, and this is purely guess because I've seen very few of this person's films, Govinda probably has some of this.
Yeah,
And I don't know
I
if there's a
agree.
direct line there, but like I feel
Right.
like that's when I think of comic leading men, he's the next one who comes
And the
to mind.
face.
Yeah.
Yeah, so malleable, just Quicksilver.
Yeah.
I agree.
And I wonder if you have any other thoughts about the Shami legacy.
I just want to say I love that Shammi Kapoor can dance in like an actual known folk dance and make it his own and pay no attention whatsoever to traditional steps such as Bhangra. And of course, I'm talking about his dance in Kashmir Ki Kali. It's that song,
Oh.
Hai Re, Hai Re, Hai Tere, whatever, Balle Balle, right? It's that song, Balle Balle. And it's so funny. You can
Oh,
tell that they hired, like, I don't think these were just extras. I feel like they hired like a proper like Bhangra troupe or something,
yeah.
because they're all really going at it and they're very serious about their dance. So they're doing their perfect Bhangra moves and they have their outfit and they look so great. And then Shami is like, Balle, Balle. I'm like, that's not Bhangra, Shami Kapoor. But you know what? It works and it worked on Sharmila and she became his Kashmir Ki Kali in the movie. So I say, even if you're doing any kind of dance, whether it's cabaret, whether it's bhangra, whether it's bharatnatyam, whether it's tap dance, jazz, whatever, it does not matter. Just do your own thing. Who cares about choreography? Just have fun and bring that golden retriever energy that the world needs.
What was the movie I watched where is it the movie where he's in a Helen and Vijantimala are having a dance off, or at least to like, let's
Prince.
look at
That's
the, yes,
Prince.
that's right. That's in Prince. And
Mukabla
then,
humse na karo.
yes. And then he inserts himself and you're like, boy,
But
sit
of course he
down,
does.
sit down. You are not welcome here. Do not mansplain dance to these two goddess legend icons. You sit down.
I know. Vijayanthimal is like killing it with the Bharatanatyam, and Helen is killing it with the Western dancing, and then he comes and does that.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
also an actual Shammi Kapoor dance form. It's called the
I just fast
octopus.
forwarded through the song and I paused on a place where he goes like this. And I was like, yeah, that's, he also, this is minor, but he has his
It's all
arms
limbs
up all
a
the
lot.
time, which I
I
think is
know.
really like, that is tiring as any of us know who've tried it. But like when he's always like,
It's also his neck too.
yeah, there's movement
I feel like
everywhere.
uh, no, whiplash. Whiplash is the
Yeah,
term. Like if you try to dance along with Shammi Kapoor to one of his songs, you're gonna hurt your neck.
you
I
got
don't
to
know how he
stretch
was doing
first.
that. You gotta stretch. You gotta like maybe get into the hot tub or the sauna. Make sure those muscles are, and then later on you gotta use your biofreeze.
And does alcohol keep you loose? I don't know if that's just a myth, but
We certainly had liquid courage.
yes.
There
Drink
was no
like no one is
inhibition, Miss
watching.
Nana. Yeah. Drink like no one's watching, dance like no one's watching, do all the things, have fun. I was watching Mumtaz's interview because remember like a few weeks ago, Amrita sent us her interview and she said, I love this interview. I want to be like Mumtaz when I grow old and like
Mm,
give no F's and just say whatever. And so I was listening to that interview and she talks about how during the shooting of Brahmachari, Mumtaz and Shami got really close and he proposed marriage to her. And she basically said, I'm super young and I'm only just getting a foothold in this film industry and I want to be an
mm,
actress. And there's just, I'm not going to give that up right now, which makes perfect sense. And in Brahmachari, in fact, it's still in that phase where she was not a heroine like first build. She's still like the second lead. So it's, Shammi Kapoor and Rajeshri are the leads, and
mm,
then there's Pran and Mumtaz, right?
mm,
So, and then Mumtaz recently said in that interview that I read that they lost touch for many many years, and then just like I think 2 years before he passed, or 1 year before he passed, they happened to be at a party and they bumped into each other. And
aw,
he was drinking whiskey. And she said, why are you drinking? Because, like, he had dialysis. And I mean, he was a
mm,
kidney patient and he actually died of kidney failure. And he was getting dialysis done like 4 times a week or something. And he said, I'm literally like kind of at the end of my life anyway.
mm,
So let me just have my whiskey. Like it's the end of the road. And a year later, he did pass, and Mumtaz did
mm,
speak about how many like good memories she had with him and what a great friendship they had. And then the fact that she was happy that she got to meet him,
yeah,
before he passed. So, but that also seems like very classic Shammi, where it's kind of like, you know what, I'm gonna die anyway. Let me have my whiskey in peace.
yeah, yeah.
So I feel like I like the Kapoors a lot, which is why we did this series. But I feel like people should not be taking life advice from them.
That's probably true. I suspect
Yeah.
that a few of them might have a few isolated pieces of good information for
Shashi,
you, but that's the
Shashi, I
exception I
think.
was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I
most
don't
of the
mind
rest of
emulating
them,
Shashi Kapoor.
probably not.
But did Shashi, but I don't feel like Shashi escaped the Kapoor curse of alcoholism, did he?
I am not terribly aware of that. I don't remember
Okay.
reading about it. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying I don't
Yeah.
remember that being, that's not a dominant part of the narrative about him anyway. But
Right.
there is, in
Yeah.
addition to the chapter in this book, there's a whole biography of him by Asim Chabra, which I fully
Yeah.
also recommend. Um, but yeah, I don't remember.
Same. But anyway, yep. Don't take life advice from the Kapoors
Do
except for
not.
dance like no one is watching and bring that golden retriever energy
Mhm.
to your life. And I think that's about it with the Shami episode. Yay! I'm so excited. I love Shami Kapoor.
That was
Actually, kind
fun.
of later, I wish that we had invited Greta to come because I
I
remember what a
know.
big
I thought about it.
Shami fan she
I
was.
figured
Yeah.
we'd have a hard time getting to schedule and everything. But yeah, Greta, this is for you and all the Shami fans out there. I know
Yes.
there are a lot because I think he is quite universally liked at the very least. Like,
Yeah.
I don't feel like I know anyone who has a negative reaction to him. They might
No.
be like, oh, that's Shammi, kind of roll their eyes,
Yeah.
but like they
That
still,
rascal.
yeah, they still have fun with his films. And I
He
mean,
also
all
has
three films I
no
watched were great.
substitute either. He has no
No,
substitute.
no,
Like,
no.
it's, you know how sometimes you can be like, well, if you like XYZ, you like,
Hmm.
blah. Like, if
Hmm.
you like Shabana Azmi, you'll also like Smita Patil. If you like Smita Patil, you like Shabana. Or if you
Yeah.
like Nasiruddin, you'll like Ompuri. If you like Ompuri, you'll like Nasiruddin. Like, you know how some people
Mm.
are like, those
Hmm.
names go together.
Hmm.
I can't think of, if you
No,
like Shammi, you'll like
no,
X. No one,
no.
no one does that. Maybe in dance and comedy, Govinda brings some of that, as you rightly pointed out, but otherwise he has
And
no
be
peer
and
even
the
now.
context was so different by the time Govinda was around that it's
Oh yeah.
almost pointless to compare them in a way. But
Yeah.
in terms of trying to do some of the same things, I think there might be some similarities. But yeah, nobody, and maybe that is also, you know, we've been talking a little bit about what you can't talk about this without naming this Kapoor or whatever, but like
Mm,
that maybe is the thing about Shammi, is that he was peerless at a really interesting
yeah.
time in movie making. And um
Mhm.
even if we don't see a ton of
And he
it
hasn't been
today,
unseated yet.
right,
Yeah.
right, it
Which is
hasn't.
crazy
I mean, there's never been
because
another
there's
Elvis, there's never been another Shammi Kapoor. Maybe we don't need them
no.
anymore in the same way, like we don't, but someone who is rebelling in some ways against
Mhm.
norms and trying something else, like the freedom that comes with that and the joy that can come with that is
Yeah.
irreplaceable and important.
I think that's also really a good word that you just used. You said joy,
Mm,
because I was actually thinking in terms of dance. Because in that article that I read, they talked about how he, he was a dancing star at a time when men were not known for dancing,
right,
right?
right.
Like the women were, but the
Yeah,
men weren't.
yeah,
And I was thinking about whom I rank as like really big dancing stars, and to this day, Shami's name is up there.
always.
The But one of the big names would be Hrithik Roshan. And
Sure.
I personally have never enjoyed Hrithik's dancing. I
Oh,
love Hrithik. I
interesting.
think yeah, because to me, he's almost too perfect.
Huh.
He's so fluid. Like, it feels
Yeah.
like the man has no bones and no muscles, right? Like,
Right.
just when you look at his movements, he's just amazing. Even when he's trying to be clumsy, he's fabulous. I love his dance and like Dhoom or Maisa. I like that song Maisa Kyun Hu from Laksha.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So great. What a great song. But that's the thing, like with Ritik, it's not necessarily joy
Mm,
that comes through, it's more like perfection. Like,
mm,
this is what
mm-hmm,
dance is.
mm-hmm.
Look and learn, because y'all never
Yeah.
gonna be able to copy
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily joyful. Ritik doesn't look like he's having the time of his life. The
Mm,
only person that brings that joy possibly would be Govinda, where he looks like he's having the time of his
he
life when
does.
he's
Yeah.
dancing.
Yeah.
But that joy, I think, is sort of unparalleled, that Shami brought to the
I,
table.
I guess if I had to name someone who's a joyful dancer these days,
Hmm.
maybe I would say Varun Dhawan.
Yeah, yes.
At
Yeah,
moments, no, maybe not all the time, but
right.
and again, the contexts are different. So, but
Yeah,
yeah, if we can't find joy in dance, like it's one of those human things, it's lovely to
I
see it.
know. I'm naming his classic, I'm calling it the octopus.
Yes, I think that's correct. And I suspect some of the women he
The
was opposite
octopus
would
trademark.
agree.
Yes, Asha Parekh especially.
Right. She's like, mm-mm.
Asha Parekh talked about it on the Kapil Sharma show, where she was asked about her dancing and her dancing co-stars, and she said the choreographer used to tell me what to do. Master Ji would say, "Asha Ji, you have to do this, this, and then you do this," and I would say, "Okay, Master Ji," and I would do all the things Master Ji told me to do, and then Master Ji would say to Shammi, "You can do this, or you can just do whatever you want."
Just gave up.
The master G was just like, it's fine. It's like, I was watching Farah Khan's interview once, and I think on Simi Garewal's show, and they asked her who is the best person to choreograph, and she rattled off a few names. She couldn't just name one, and of course Shahrukh was in that list. And then they asked her like the worst person, and she said Nana Patekar.
Oh yeah, you've mentioned that. Yeah, 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 yeah.
It was just instantaneous. It was like Nana Patekar, like he broke her. So yeah. Anyway, I think that concludes this episode. I think we had a lot of
Mm-hmm.
fun.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be one of the kids or the doggy in Brahmachari going la 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 la.
I hope that viewers will tell us their favorite Shammi performances. We didn't even touch on Teesri Munzil, which I think is my
We
favorite of
didn't.
his films, maybe the whole thing, maybe not just him, but
Yes.
boy, do I love that. I mean, everyone loves
That movie
Teesri
is
Munzil, but
so good.
so
We
good.
should do an episode on Nasser Hussain films because
Oh
man
yeah,
was brilliant.
amazing. Yeah.
So good. Okay, well, thank you for watching this episode of Filmy Ladies, and we will see you next week with another episode. And we hope you're enjoying the Kapoor series. If you had to tell us what you love about Shammi Kapoor, if you agree with the Golden Retriever comparison, let us know. And we'll see you next time. Bye.